hypersonic craft speeding into the night. Alien invasion, glowing silver disc approaching the speed of light. Just take a moment to scan the night sky. Just don't know what it might try to hide. A gliding comet, a falling star, something more nefarious coming from afar. Alien invasion.
And welcome back to the second episode of ETU, Extraterrestrial University. This is a podcast where all three of us involved are, it's kind of a work in progress of sorts, but I would say we're definitely on our way. We'll go ahead and introduce everybody. We'll go left to right. Tone, the one and only Anthony Hayes joining us, kind of the ringleader of this, bringing this to the forefront to bring all of us together. And Crooks, hanging out. I like the background of that with the alien floating there. Or maybe he's a space traveler. I don't know what he is. But anyway, welcome, Crooks. And I'm Pat Dundas, and glad to be with you all here as we talk about ETU, the new version, exciting podcast that we're unveiling. So, Tone, I'll have you start things off. You're the guy who kind of brought everything together. You have a movement that's occurring in the Palouse right now where you guys are exploring UAPs and phenomena that can not necessarily be explained on an extraterrestrial level.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Pat. And I don't know if our video will be up, but that's okay. Like Mr. Dundas said, we're working out the kinks and just enjoying this journey here. So yeah, we'll have in Monday in February at the Kenworthy Theater, we'll have a showing of The Age of Disclosure, brought to you by some various businesses to be unveiled, and the Palouse UAP discussion group. And yeah, I'm looking forward to. I had a lot of fun last week, and looking forward to this week's as well. So I'll pass the baton over to Crooks there.
Yeah, welcome back, gentlemen. We're going to be discussing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a kind of a recap of an old movie, but an important movie for our subject, I believe. So, if you guys are ready for a discussion. Let's talk UFOs.
Let's get into it. That was amazing, Crooks. Let's begin with, I think it's a good place to start. Spielberg obviously was the director of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Where do you think this ranks among Spielberg films in your point of view? If we could maybe point out a few just to kind of remind ourselves of the history there. Pat, what do you want to get us started?
Yeah, when it comes to Spielberg movies, sometimes I have trouble remembering which ones he produced and which ones he directed, because he's been involved in so many monumental films. But I rank Close Encounters of the Third Kind of one of his best works, because it was groundbreaking, particularly when you look at the special effects and just the time period. There was nobody really putting movies out like this, and so he was ahead of his time. He always kind of has been on some level. But I always go to Indiana Jones or Schindler's List to being one of the top ones that he's ever done. There's just so many. It's hard. Like, how do you narrow down a top 5 or a top 10 for this guy? Because he's done so much and contributed so much to the cinematic universe. But for me, I would say it's always been one of those films that has always stood out to me. I was watching a bunch of clips recently, just kind of like refamiliarizing myself. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole movie like I intended, but for you, Crooks, I know you've always been a Spielberg guy.
Yeah, he's got so many. I mean, our age, Pat, we grew up watching so many of these big blockbuster feature films. Like, E.T. was around in that time. So it's not the first movie that is associated with, the big question, are we alone out there? But Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it was groundbreaking, like you said. And it was real fun to watch that again this week. So be exciting to talk about it.
Yes, I agree, Crooks. Spielberg, he really took the topic seriously. And so we got, Close Encounters, I believe in 1977. I don't know when E.T. came out, but Close Encounters, I feel, and from what I've heard other folks talking about, he really tried to take some of the the real life case studies and encounters and tried to put it into this movie. And then I feel like E.T. came along, and that was more about, you know, the interaction with the being. But definitely in both movies, you get a feel of it's not fear based. It's a wonder based feel on that these non-humans are here, not on bad terms or negative terms. So yeah, I guess, guys, shifting gears just slightly, let's just get into, before we get to maybe some of the deeper questions. I think this is just a simple one. What happened in the movie? Let's just go over it again. Like, what happened?
Ouch. Sorry, we're not talking about ET, right? We're talking about Close Encounters.
We got to do your ET impressions. Elliot.
I said that one time with one of my students, like they ended up dropping something on their foot, and I went, ouch. And they just looked at me like I was from another planet.
You might be, Pat. That's part of the podcast. I told my brother about this, and about our first episode. He goes, "Is this really just a podcast so Pat can finally tell everybody he's an alien?"
Oh man, the H-man.
Yeah, but opening scene. So there's a stormy desert, and it looks like there's World War II planes parked in the middle of the desert. They have a conversation with an old guy, and I guess Crooks, we did our homework. Shame on you, Pat. Shame, double shame. Pat's been under the weather all week, folks. So he has.
I got an F on this one, but yeah, you guys, the one-sided A.
I think it's that Saturday school, Pat, for you. Sorry.
Yeah,
so
Pat.
Sorry, Crooks. Anything on that? Yeah, those opening scenes.
Yeah, they found 5 or 6 of those torpedo bombers just in that Mexican desert in that big sandstorm. Flight 19 disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle in 1945. So right away that they were, those planes reappeared. How'd they get there? It was kind of a mystery. They were in perfect working order.
Yeah, what do you think is going on with that? I get the pilots coming out at the very end, but why are the planes in the desert?
I don't know exactly, but yeah, they took the planes and then they put them back.
Is it possible that they were like dropped there, like almost like a tractor beam?
They must have teleported there somehow with that, the whole lore and with the Bermuda Triangle. So that gets you, I think that was a great start to really get a good hook for the audience, to be like, what in the world's going on here? I thought I was getting into a UFO movie, but Spielberg, I think, brings in a lot of different elements, whether it's telepathy, the communication of the 5 notes, frequency, just a lot of mysteries going on there. And there was a scene following with a bunch of radar operators. And what do you think Spielberg was trying to do with, they all came to the conclusion that it was anomalous, but then they decided, let's not report this.
Radar operators. I'm not remembering that little portion near the beginning, but
it wasn't too long. They were tracking some of the, crafts that Roy would see eventually.
Oh, in Indiana.
Yeah. And so they just determined not to report it. I would guess because of the stigma and the risk of losing your career. A pilot, I think giants have come before us, and so now we can talk about it and not worry about losing our jobs. But if you're a pilot, I don't think you really want to be reporting these things, at least back then.
No.
Yeah,
quite the
big time
contrast from
stigma.
today, though.
All those. Oh, yeah. You don't want to be caught talking about that stuff or even acknowledging that you might have seen something like that. So those guys were doing that to preserve their profession, I suppose, or not put their jobs at risk.
Yeah, probably credibility. It's quite a contrast to today. You know, you think about was it Commander David Fravor? Is that his name? He's been on record of saying that he's flown alongside of a witnessed and observed, UAP. And so you got these guys that are, well known pilots that are coming out and making a statement that they've seen something that they just can't explain. So I mean, I think we live in times where there's more safety around it.
You dang right, Dundas, man. Novice, no, whatever. Good job, David Fravor. Nice work.
If it wasn't
That's a
for
good
Joe
point,
Rogan, though, I probably wouldn't know these. Like I listened to several Joe Rogan. I try to get in at least a couple of those a week, and so he's had a lot of UAP folks on there throughout the years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Moving
So,
on with, I was gonna go into sort of the when Roy has his first encounter. So he sets it up with he's out trying to. He must be a utility guy, right? He's trying to fix the power outage. He's trying to find a location. He waves the car by. He sees car lights behind him. He waves the car on. I think maybe that happens once or twice, but then it's the UFO. The craft is behind him, and that's when he waves on the UFO, like, go ahead. But then these sort of odd occurrences start happening, and his power starts fluctuating, and also the gravity gets kind of messed up, and the sounds. I heard an intelligence officer this week. He was talking about his experience in Area 2 in the Mojave Desert. He said, like, when those crafts came near, it was almost like the sound was like being underwater. Like when you go underwater, it's a different sound. So I found that fascinating. But that's where we first see those anomalies of his power fluctuating and the power around him. Some of the objects in his truck are like floating and moving around. And then he also gets pretty bad burn from the effect of the craft. So these match up with a lot of real life things. But what are your guys' thoughts on that part of the movie with Spielberg trying to bring in some of those, real life things that have been reported?
Yeah, I like that approach to bring in, real aspects of, things potentially people have experienced without, actually showing too much of the craft or too much of, an entity. He kind of leaves that to your imagination right there. And I think, he used those techniques with Jaws, in that previous movie. The shark, you don't really see it a lot, but it's kind of more terrifying to know that it's there, but you can't see it really. So the few glimpses of the craft that Roy sees, from his truck, it's just bright lights. He can't really make out exactly what it is. It kind of leaves it a mystery, but it's a presence that, could be terrifying.
Use of score and soundtrack are huge for that, because you mentioned Jaws, but the way music is used is to be able to create a scene is pretty amazing. And I feel like filmmakers of that time period were always really good at doing a lot with less. So much more of our current movies that we watch are built on special effects. And so many times special effects drive the movie. But if you look at those guys are storytellers. I mean, Steven Spielberg's a storyteller, and they could carry a story, especially with Jaws, man. That's another one that terrified me as a kid. It kind of still terrifies me as an adult. Even though I know what's coming, But.
Is that why, Pat, when we went swimming at the dunes at the river, you were
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you another thing that happened here recently. And in the river, down by, I think it was over by the dam in Post Falls, they found an alligator float in the river. And so those are the kinds of things that have always been in the back of my mind. Is there some kind of sea creature or something? It turns out that somebody had an alligator and dumped it there. It was dead. But but they don't know how. They don't know who dumped it. They don't know how it got there. But it was a real live alligator who had since, was no longer alive. And so tone, yeah, in the back of my mind, I kind of wonder, is there something that's going to get me? Freshwater piranhas. I don't know. Supposedly that's not a thing, but in the world we live in, dude, mad scientists, I don't know. They're like, this guy's paranoid.
Yeah, fascinating. Bringing up this topic can be a little bit of a risk. My experience with it is about you'll get like 3 out of 10 hits, like if you bring up the UFO topic, and that's why I was like tickled to death when Crooks was like, "Oh, I've been fascinated." I was like, "Oh, it's one of the 3 out of 10 that I got." And same with you, Pat. One day in the staff room, I was talking the subject, and most people change the subject or walk out of the room. But our music teacher, which she retired this year, she's from Dayton, Washington, and she's like, "Oh, I've had my experience." I'm like, "What?" Well, tell me about it. She was with her brother, and they were teenagers in their car out in the country near Dayton, Washington, and they came across, and she goes, "I have no reason to make this up, Anthony. I've heard you talking about UFOs before, but you were talking, I finally decided to say something, but they saw a flying saucer up close. Their car turned off. It died. And then she said it looked like, she said there was no sound, and then it just disappeared and their car came back on. No way to prove this in the no video footage, none of that, but still, it seems like to me a credible source. So I just found that, how many people are not speaking of their experiences because of the giggle factor of the risk of stigma.
Oh, sure. It's very real. I want to give a shout out to Will Hutchins, Dayton, Washington, State B basketball legend. Crooks knows.
Is that our only connection to Dayton, Pat? It's possible.
That's my only connection. He also played at Washington State University.
Yeah.
So also we can tie it back to Pullman, Washington. But that's my only, if someone were to say Dayton, Washington, I know that it's known for wheat fields and Will Hutchins. And that's about all I know. But
so Crooks,
yeah.
Crooks, what do you think about Roy's wife's reaction in the story? Because Roy felt like, once he had his encounter, he had this really strong, just sort of feeling, almost a knowing that he had to do something. I mean, I don't know if you can blame his reaction of his wife or what, but what are your thoughts on that? Both you guys, on that aspect of the story where, Roy seems like his cheese really slid off his cracker there. Maybe you could explain to people who haven't seen it in a while what Roy did as well, if you guys want to touch on that.
Yeah, the evening where Roy had his encounter, he ended up running into another group of people that were on that roadside, and then the craft, 3 or 4 of them kind of flew by. They all got a really good look at those things. But Roy makes it home at some point, and he's telling his wife about it. She sees the one side of his face is all sunburnt from the encounter. She's got questions. How could that, what happened there? It's the middle of the night. How'd you get sunburnt? She seemingly was interested in, listening to his explanation. I think he even took her back to the site of one of the encounters, and she admitted that she was taking it pretty well. She wanted some credit for hearing him out, but within a day or two, his fascination persisted, she lost interest. I think she started to recognize that he might be going crazy. And definitely when he started bringing all that dirt into the house and building that. Yeah. So essentially she grabs the kids and takes off. And Roy, he never, it's like he never thought twice about his family after that. He was just connected to this phenomena, and he had to seek it out. He had to get answers.
And there's probably a high likelihood, if you go to the end of the movie, that he never sees his family ever again.
Yeah, it's possible.
Which makes you wonder. But it also that tracks for me though, because you hear a lot of enthusiasts that seem to have that kind of mindset of like, I'm going to distance everything out of my life except those things, and I'm going to go pursue this phenomenon. See, there's a lot of stories that align with that, and I wonder if because Spielberg did his research, I'm wondering, how much they were able to draw upon that when the script was being written.
Yeah, I mean, we're all as human beings, we're always so close to. It's like, how far are we away from losing it? I mean, you guys, Pat or Dundas and Crooks, you guys are fun to be around. I love hanging with you, but the three of us, like, the day that Crooks got a hold of that megaphone in Cheney when we were going to Eastern, we just rode around town all day pretending to campaign for various local politicians. We just had a blast. So as much as I trust you guys and you're my good friends, if Crooks or you or I started like digging up shrubs and throwing dirt inside of a house, I would be that's crazy, but I'd be like, well, that is Tone, Dundas, and Crooks too, though.
Yeah, it's a real fine line, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I think Roy, he I guess it kind of the character development was their family was kind of a chaotic family anyway, but gosh, he really took it to a whole nother level when he started doing all that crazy stuff.
Well, and I could imagine as a spouse being like, okay, is this a phase or is this the rest of my life? Can I deal with this with this guy that's hauling in all this dirt and just basically just making a mess out of my house? I'm like, I try to think of the perspective of the wife as she's just watching her husband just I don't know, I wouldn't say implode, but maybe from her perspective he was imploding.
Pat, you have an opportunity to do that today and test it out on your wife.
You're right, I do. There's a place just down the road from us that specializes in bringing in dirt and bark. If I were just to have them, or hay, yeah,
Nice.
She said hay.
I didn't
There
mean
is a
literally
place
hay.
there's a place that could bring hay too. I mean, it's all within reach.
No, I'm sorry, HEY. I was like, hey, you could also get mashed potatoes on the menu.
See, also a possibility. I figure it'd be a mixed bag. I don't know how Allison would take it. Probably, I don't know. I'll leave that up to Crooks. Maybe it.
I think you would get away with it, Pat. I think it would work.
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Most people, I don't think these days know this movie. I mean, that would be fun in a restaurant to just start slapping on the mashed potatoes and being like, this is important. This means something.
Oh, man, I don't know. We living in a world that we have so much access to information. It's a much different time too. I think about, when Close Encounters came out, we just didn't have people at that particular time didn't have the knowledge. And even as a kids growing up in the 80s and 90s, I mean, we didn't have access to information like we do now. So it's a different world.
That's a good point. Good point.
It's hard. Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff. But Tone, you were saying in addition to the movie, this is a hard one because we could go off on so many different tangents regarding this.
We could, and I don't want to. I want to let those breathe as well because that's how we got the name, and that's how we got the topic of this show. So, Pat, what are you thinking, buddy?
Oh man, I would say continuing on your points that you were talking about in terms of the notes of your movie, I think is a great direction because that'll open up a whole nother world of organic conversation.
All right, cool. Well, if something comes to mind, Pat, let it flow. And
you got it.
Crooks, what do you think? I mean, I have some things jotted down from my notes, but what in the storyline, what happens next that you feel is an important part of the plot that we should cover? So I guess now we're at, I don't know. Do you want to explain maybe what happens after? So Roy, how does he know where he's supposed to go? So he makes that thing in his house. Can you kind of explain to our listeners that point of the story?
Yeah, Roy, upon bringing in all the dirt and all the shrubs. He's creating, kind of a landscape. He doesn't know what it's supposed to be, but it's resembles like a large, like, mound or kind of a brown treeless hill. He doesn't understand what it is. But also near where Roy lives, there's that other encounter with the woman and her little boy, and they all meet up on that roadside that first evening. He meets those folks, but at the same time, those people's home are being invaded by those aliens, kind of on a separate tangent. But that little boy gets abducted from the mother as well. And she has a connection, some kind of urge to go to wherever this mountain is too. I think, were they drawing pictures of that mountain at her house? I don't know if the little boy had drawn pictures or if the mother did, but
I think the mother did for sure, because she
yeah.
showed those later, and then some of the other folks. Yeah, you're right. They had that meeting up on the roadway, and then also there was like some sort of press conference or type of meeting with investigators. I don't know if it was the FBI or somebody else, and you could tell that they were trying to downplay. The investigators were trying to downplay the whole thing.
Yeah, so there was at that press conference, there was a room full of 50 people that likely had seen the alien spacecraft, and they were there seeking answers from the government. But a lot of those folks had some kind of urge that they couldn't explain, that they needed answers, and somehow they were compelled to try to travel, or they were willing to travel. And especially I think when they started putting the Devil's Tower on the TV, saying that there was some kind of poison gas or something in the air near there and people had to evacuate, that's when those people finally realized, what they were drawing pictures of, or what Roy was building in his kitchen. So now they had a place to go, they had a destination in mind, and they went there however they could get there. Walking, driving, however you do it.
Yeah, they had a really strong urge to go. And Crook's touching on like the amount of people that were there saying, "Hey, I saw something. I know what I saw." I think it's episode 3. Remember, we were gonna do the encounters episode on Rua, Zimbabwe one, but we switched to this one. There's another episode on Stephenville, Texas, where there was sightings all over that area, and they contacted authorities, and then the Mutual UFO Network, I think it was them, agreed to bring some people together and be like, "Hey, let's talk about this." They expected a few people. They said about 300 people showed up, and then they had to turn people away. And I believe this happened in the early 2000s. And so this stuff, relating this film to some things that have really happened, I think is very telling. It's very, very strange that there's things that happen sort of like what Spielberg is talking about.
Yeah, it rings true at the present day more than probably anybody ever expected. Elements of it, at least.
Yeah, most definitely. So Roy, he jumps in his car. His family left. He jumps in his car, heads from Indiana to Wyoming. Doesn't really cover the road trip. He shows up in a small town nearby. And like Crooks mentioned, I believe that the Army and the military had they were trying to figure out how to get people to evacuate the area, and so they made it seem like there was some sort of dangerous gas explosion or gas leak or something. And I believe, I don't know if you two know, I haven't looked this one up, did they intentionally like kill some of that livestock and place them on the side of the road to make people think?
That was what was kind of implied, but I think later they kind of revealed that it was like some kind of sleeping gas, that it was temporary. Because when Roy and Jillian, near the end of the film, when they're climbing around the Devil's Tower, they send that helicopter up there and they're trying to spray that gas. It's supposed to knock them out for 6 hours or something. So I think all that livestock was just put to sleep to make it look like they had died.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think some of the clues given, some of the inferences they want us to make were just that 6 hours. So that's why some of those folks had birds, I think, just to see like, wait a minute, if these birds are okay, what's going on? Is there and Roy the whole time was like, there's nothing going on here as far as that. He just kind of had an intuition about that as well. Any of this ringing a bell, Pat? With
Oh yeah, no, it's all this conversation is ringing a bell because no, he was adamant that the air was fine. Like you could tell like people that weren't in the know were genuinely concerned for their health and welfare. And he was out there saying everything is fine. And so he was ready to rock and roll that there was something going on and they weren't sharing all the information. So yeah, it's interesting that he was so gung ho on it, but he ended up being right about it. Of course, there being something there.
Briefly, I'm surprised Roy made it there in one piece. Did you guys notice how he drove? The guy's got 5 maps covering his windshield and he's holding them up. He can't see nothing. He almost runs into oncoming traffic, dude. The guy was out of control.
Spielberg he always does such a good job of making sure that we have a good time as well. I mean, Roy is hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
break down how insane he is. Yeah, he's driving with a map, and all the cars are trying to leave. They're taking both sides as a one way. He's trying to get back in to Devil's Tower.
That is funny. No, I think it's good you're bringing up some of the intricacies of the film. You know, because I know this will strike a chord with people because it is a popular film that still rings true today. I feel like in people who are cinematic film lovers.
You're right, Pat. And the coolest part is being able to tie it into earlier this week. Spielberg released the trailer for Disclosure Day, which kind of takes it to a whole nother level of some of the things that we've seen in this topic. And so that'll be really fun at the end to be like, hey, this story, his storytelling in this topic is not done. And matter of fact, it's a big one coming up in June.
Good timing.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's where we're at. Roy is really trying to make his way. So Crooks, it looks like he's going to get shipped off. Him and Julianne. That's the mother of the boy's name is Barry. He gets abducted, which I did want to ask you later if you think it was an abduction or voluntarily he went on the craft. But we can get to that later because at the end scene, there's a lot of folks that come out of the mothership. So they're in the helicopter about ready to ship off. A lot of people made their way there. And there's a couple of investigators, the French investigator who is supposed to be Jacques Vallée in real life, based on him. And then the translator, I don't think he's based off any real life people. But they are definitely understanding that these people were brought here because they were called here. They have a strong urge to come to this place for some reason. And so they were, anyway, Crooks, can you kind of break down that part?
Yeah, they definitely felt that those people had been invited. I think they said that word. They'd been invited, to this meeting that was about to take place. But the military, was in charge of, locking down that area and they were already trying to get rid of all the civilians. So those scientists that were kind of running the show, I think they wanted to let those folks stay. And I think when Roy and Jillian escaped the airplane or the helicopter, those guys see them running, through a window, and they don't alert the military that a couple of them got away. I think some other people outside saw them anyway, because they did try to chase them up the mountain. But those scientists, I think they were happy that they were there. They knew something.
They both had a little bit of a smile on their face as they saw him.
Yeah, I think so.
And they discover, and Crooks, you and Pat, you've been to Devil's Tower, and Crooks, you when you were younger, and then Crooks more in his towards his adult part of his life. But the base is on like where. Could you, Pat, if you remember, or Crooks, if you remember, could you describe where the actual base is, where they are trying to set up the basically where they want to have their first contact with these non-human beings?
I don't recall like a clearing that exists like that. I think the base of the mountain, is all jagged rock that has fallen from, the tower, and where Roy and Jillian are kind of scaling that mountainside, trying to, elude the military that's chasing them. That seems pretty realistic how I remember it, but they appear to come around the tower, and that's when they spot all the equipment and almost like a landing pad, for the spacecraft, and all the scientists are there. I'm not sure if that translates to anything in reality, but maybe it could have just been lower down the mountain. It's possible, but.
Yeah, so they're playing these 5 notes of frequency. I find that fascinating due to the overwhelming report of telepathy in Close Encounters of the Third Kind that happened, reports in real life. Maybe that's sort of a mediary of like, how do we get human beings to eventually figure out how to communicate this way? Maybe that's the common form of communication. But those 5 notes, there's a couple scenes where in India people are singing those 5 notes, and so somehow they figure out this is their way to communicate with them. So Pat, do you remember like that's kind of how they bring in, for I think first some other craft come in and kind of scope out the area, and then when the mothership comes, can you maybe take us along that one, Pat, on how they started to bring in the mothership?
Well, one thing that, and I'm probably skipping some details here, but what jumps out to me is, when they arrive and they first start playing the notes, and then the mothership responds with like those real bassy, and in my mind, I was scared because I was like, man, what is happening? This is a friendly tune, and these guys are barking out some bassy stuff. And I was like, what's the next step? Do you think they're going to attack everybody? Did that ever cross your mind?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you go into this huge unknown, right?
Yeah, I don't know, that always jumped out to me, wondering what was going to happen next. But then, of course, they continue communicating in all those different musical structures, and the next thing you know, essentially they've put together a full symphony of communication.
I remember a lot of this movie without watching it recently. Good for you.
I do, yeah. No, I'd say it's indelible though, because I watched that with Tom a couple of times throughout the years. But no, I went through to some YouTube, try to watch, some of the clips, the longer clips I could find to help me refresh my memory a little bit. But no, that part with when they first start communicating with those tones and the ship is like, oh man, that always sticks out in my mind.
I even had the neighbor Travis. He was doing research this week. He watched the movie too.
Oh, no way.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, we were starting to watch that Zimbabwe thing, and I definitely saw the Stevensville one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. But I kept falling asleep during the Zimbabwe one. I think that was kind of late at night could have been last Sunday.
That's a good sign, because anything interesting makes you fall asleep because you don't worry about anything else in the whole world. And then I fall asleep to some of the best stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I had teachers in high school that might not feel the same way. Falling asleep in class. How do you think Wally Scroggy would take it if you fell asleep in class, Crooks?
Well, I think falling asleep in class, if a person needs eyeglasses and they don't realize it, and they're like having to squint to look at the board or see the lecture, it makes them tired.
That's a good point. Maybe they're not the same thing.
Artificially putting you to sleep there because you need glasses.
That's a yeah. Let's see, where were we, Pat? You were talking about kind of the sounds being a little intimidating and stuff. So
Yeah, for
um
sure. I'm glad that you got us back on track because I'm the master of rabbit holes and getting off track. So
oh, it's
sometimes
okay.
sometimes I think it's good to have somebody, hey, we're going back this direction, you know.
No, that's good chemistry. We need all the elements of our who we are to come into it. So no, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
for sure. So talking about the tones and everything and the, the responses back and forth, leading up to where they open up, the mothership opens up and all the people start coming out, that essentially were lost, that they thought they disappeared. And they're checking off the list of like all the people. Do you think all of the people they thought were gone, did they all show up, or were there only some of them that came back?
Well, you noticed, Pat. Well, you might not have seen this this week, but when those folks were coming off in those Navy pilots, those guys from Flight 19, they were checking them off kind of one by one, and they had some kind of picture board with a bunch of faces of people that presumably had been abducted by the aliens, and they were just kind of checking them off one by one. So they were expecting a lot of these people to reappear from the ship, or maybe they were hoping that they were on the ship, but they kind of had a list of people that they were looking for.
That's a good
Yeah.
observation. I noticed that they were, given their identification numbers. I didn't see that board though. That's a good observation.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
remember the board. It was quick though. They didn't spend a lot of time on it. Like it was probably less than 5-10 seconds, maybe.
yeah, it just they didn't. Nobody mentioned that they were checking people off, but I think you definitely saw. They were doing something like that, but and I think for a lot of the viewers, they were happy to see that little boy Barry come walking off the craft. I'm sure his mother was excited to see him.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and I think that's where I think Spielberg wants us, and I don't know what the answer to this is. Like, if 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 this stuff is real, if there's really this interaction of non-human intelligence, are they nefarious or benevolent? But I'm pretty sure Spielberg is trying to bring out the wonder and the potential of being able to, as humanity, bring ourselves to a level where we can interact with another species or intelligence in a peaceful way. As far as I can tell, I would guess that they brought everybody back. That would be my guess.
Everybody returned unharmed, those pilots, but 32 years had passed. Do the aliens not have any do they not feel bad that they stole 32 years from those people? Or I mean, those people were removed from their families, so presumably all the wives of those pilots, now they're old, and that pilot potentially can go home to them, but their life is kind of messed up.
That's true. David Grush, the most recent famous whistleblower, Jesse Michaels, he has he had probably one of the best UFO UAP podcasts, American Alchemy. He got a chance to gather some of his listeners and meet in Washington D.C. and talk to Grush. Somebody asked him, like, are these things good or evil? He said, well, his answer was, from the information I have, ask the same thing about human beings overall. Are we good or are we bad?
Yeah.
And I guess crooks that would touch, like, maybe they just don't understand, or maybe they had no harm. Like, oh, to a human being, taking us away from our family for even a year or 6 months would be damaging. But I don't know. Just guessing, maybe they didn't understand what that effect that would have.
Time's not necessarily linear either. Time there is probably not the same as time here. So maybe what 32 years here is maybe just a blip for them. I don't know. I kind of wonder that as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the pilots appeared not to have aged a day, just like those aircraft when they reappeared, like were just the same as they were when they disappeared. But And I think they dropped a little connection to like light travel or time travel for that matter. If you're moving faster than light, time moves different for you than it does like if, us on Earth. And I think that they were kind of trying to capture that idea. I think they even mentioned Einstein briefly at that point in the movie. And one of the scientists even suggests that Einstein may have even been an alien himself.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
I think Einstein may have been one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool what that movie touched upon and how it's still relevant today. The coincidences of Pat wanting to bring this up, and then the trailer bring up talking about Close Encounters. Pat was like, I don't know when we're gonna be able to talk about it, but it's like, well, it's relevant, so we should talk about it now, especially with Spielberg coming out with another UFO film called Disclosure Day. The Age of Disclosure with one of his producers just came out with a powerful documentary. And then also last week, I'm like, hey guys, check out. Pat's a big, I don't know if you are, Crooks, a big Joe Rogan fan. And Joe Rogan has Michael Masters on his show this week from Montana
Yes.
Tech in Butte, Montana. His anthropological work is amazing and fascinating. He did open up, I think, about a year and a half ago and talk about his experiences on his, supposed interaction with non-human intelligence is similar to Roy's in many ways, where you'll have to check it out. That's a whole nother rabbit hole if we ever got the opportunity to take a road trip to Butte, Montana and talk to Dr. Masters. But he talks about, if we could kind of get into Disclosure Day a little bit, start going that route.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Masters had an experience where he had somebody basically come up to him and essentially telepathically communicate with him. And he started downloading ideas, and they asked him telepathically, do you want to know, I think I might be getting this wrong, like, do you want to know the gist of what it is, or do you want to wait until the information that we're giving you is needed and relevant? And he said he wanted to wait. So sounds crazy, right? If any of us told anybody that, but this guy has no signs of mental health issues or anything. So with everything that happened in Close Encounter, did you guys get a chance to watch the trailer for Disclosure Day?
I have not.
Yeah, I did see that. I saw that a week or so ago when you sent me the link.
All right. Well, Crooks, do you think you could give a summary of it for audience and for Pat, or do you want me to take it?
I think Tone, we better have you give a little description of that for us.
Okay, well, it seems like it's taking the sort of viewpoint of, okay, these things are here. How are they going to unveil themselves? And it seems like from some of the hints that they're going to do it within us. It's Emily Blunt, whatever her character's name is in Disclosure Day. She's trying to give a weather report on TV, and she looks like she has anxiety. She's trying to get out what she needs to say, and she just can't. And it sounds like some sort of voice is taking over her. And then it shows clips from people all over the world just kind of shocked by what this could be. Then just a lot of random clips of people saying, like there's 7 billion people that have the right to know. People are starving for the truth. And lots of chase scenes of people in black suits and dark windowed cars. A lot of mystery left there, but it shows a few scenes of like people in labs moving, almost like an avatar having an effect on somebody else. And this is a whole nother aspect in the UFO field about the manipulation of our minds and what that could be. So I think that's the best I can do. You really have to watch it to really get the gist of it. Crooks, how did I do? Is that way off?
That was great. I mean, the trailer was only 3 minutes long. I mean, you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, I don't know if I nailed it, but
Yeah. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
And I really want the yeah, I need to dig more into this, but for maybe a future episode, if we could pull somebody in from the Park Service or somebody that is an expert on Devil's Tower, because I'd like to know more about there's something magical about the Black Hills of the Dakotas and Wyoming in that area. It would be interesting to get a Native American perspective on that area. Maybe food for thought for another episode somewhere down the line, because I would love to hear more about the originations of this structure.
That's a Pat. That's why we got to let Pat riff, man. You start bringing up stuff that makes a lot of sense. At UFO Fest, I cannot think of his name right now. He was essentially like an X-Files type police officer on the Navajo reservation. He spoke at UFO Fest, and he said, "People, one thing you got to realize is disclosure happened, since time immemorial ago." In indigenous people, like, we've always known this is real. It's now just the rest of the world is starting to discover this. So
Yeah.
absolutely, Pat. I could reach out. There's a Lakota Dakota family that I think would love to talk about it, because I think we underestimate like how much is already known by the indigenous people of the Americas, or maybe all indigenous cultures all over.
They're particularly the hot spots, throughout the United States, of those tribes that maybe originate from those areas. But there's probably a whole nother all host of whole other stories that that we just don't know about, that don't have the same what's the word, popular culture cachet, I guess. So this will be interesting, man, because I think it's really interesting when you talk about this whole intersection of pop culture and like this festival that you went to. Was that in McMinnville?
Yeah, it's in McMinnville, and the reason for them holding that there, I think it was in the 1950s on Trent Family Farm. They took a couple photographs of a flying saucer, and it made the cover of Time magazine. And I believe that it held up through all the investigations of, well, this is not a hoax. And while it's a lot of fun, and we have fun here too, and have
Oh
fun.
yeah.
But after all the parade and all of the vendors and all the costume contests, or during it, there's also, you can go listen to guest speakers. And so the lineup last year was the best they ever had. It was Lou Elizondo, who is the basically the main character in Age of Disclosure, and he was responsible for bringing the three videos. Him and gosh, can't remember his name. He's a famous family. They have a lot of money. Anyway, they brought those videos for Lou Elizondo. Was there. Dan Sheehan, he's like a famous civil rights attorney that was involved with Iran Contra, lots of other things. He was there. And the gentleman from the Unsolved Mysteries, the Navajo guy, and then George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell were there. So it was like all-star lineup. It was amazing.
Heavy hitters.
Pat, mark your calendar. I think it's in the middle of May. We may have to go down there for a weekend and take it in this year.
I need to put that on the calendar. I agree with you. It would be fun to go and add to our perspective of what we're experiencing right now within the confines of this podcast. But yeah, Tony, you've opened up my whole world to different perspectives. I mean, I've been kind of on the outward edge, but you being able to kind of bring it together, I think in the long run, it would be fun to bring in another live guest to bring in at some point, when you feel comfortable.
Most definitely. And I could let you guys know after the episode, there's like actually 3 or 4 people that are interested already. Yeah. But regarding
like this,
that, Pat, before this thought leaves my mind, just having being open-minded, skeptical, I think is healthy, right? I don't think anybody here is claiming they know anything for sure. Just super fascinating things that have happened. But it brings me back to, I don't think Crooks made it this night, but at Eastern, the Warrens came to Eastern and did a presentation. And afterwards, Pat's like, I've actually had some weird stuff happen. And I admit, Pat,
Yeah.
like looking back, I rolled my eyes at you, but now I think
You're not the first person that rolled their eyes at me, nor the last, I'm sure.
But to cut off what you had to say, I think doesn't make any sense. Even scientifically, he's like, okay, what's your story, Pat? Tell me your story. I should have been. I wish I would have had that approach, but it's never too late to make things right. And so, maybe one of these times, Pat, you could, if you're comfortable. Because I mean, think of like if you hear Michael Masters' story and with his status, and he's coming forward with that, I think other people will start. I mean, I can share, I have in the future, I've just one UFO experience, but like I had something that happened with that was a little more strange that I tend not to tell people. But I'm like, well, why not? It's just data, it's just information. So I don't know, Pat, do you remember that? And does that make sense at all?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And I remember inside, that was in the multi-purpose room there in the pub, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of people in there. That was a pretty popular event. There was probably, would you say 300 to 500 people in there?
There was a lot of people. It was very
It,
popular. Yeah.
it was wall to wall. I remember that. All the chairs, they were standing room only. It was quite the thing. But I think there is an interesting intersection between UAP phenomena and the supernatural. So I don't really know where it ends and begins and how it all works, but we live in an interesting world where there are planes of existence that I think are coming into our point of view when we don't necessarily realize nor understand it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, Pat. And I think that's a good good sign to enter the conclusion of our show.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it vague in terms of the stories. Maybe at some point we'll dive into them, but as of right now, you're right. That's a good place to conclude. But the Warrens, that was an interesting one. They were an older couple, weren't they? Like in their 70s at that point, and they dedicated like a good portion of their lives to basically researching phenomena in the supernatural.
Yeah, I believe that they were around that age. Yeah, it was an
Yeah,
interesting night. I wish I would have been a little more open-minded, not to take everything in, no matter, just, oh, I'll believe anything you say. But it was fascinating nonetheless.
yeah, they're at the forefront of paranormal investigators. Like they were doing it before it was a thing. People see all those shows that are on Sci-Fi Channel and all these different cable networks, but the Warrens were in the nitty-gritty before it was popular.
That's yeah, absolutely. Crooks,
Yeah.
any final thoughts on
Well, I wish I wouldn't have missed that evening with you guys so many years ago. I'm not too familiar with these Warrens, but
You should look them up.
okay, I
They're
may have to check that
interesting
out.
couple. Yeah, older couple that have been, I think they got married in, younger age. They started doing it early on, and by that point they've been at it for 30 plus years by the time they arrived at Eastern Washington University. But they had, I think, gotten popular with the college circuit,
Yeah.
able to, book
You
appearances.
remember Poltergeist, the movie, Crooks?
Vaguely.
I believe she plays a character in the movie, the real life lady. Is that right, Pat? Isn't that right? Isn't she in that movie towards the end?
That sounds correct. I don't fully know. Like, talk about movies that scared me as a kid is Poltergeist. So I was kind of one of those, where you see in movies where kids are like this, covering their eyes and like looking around. That was me.
That was really scary movie because it was so like, I mean, not super close to reality, but enough for a kid to be like, being taken through a television or a tree coming to life during a storm and trying to eat you.
Scared the heck out of me. Also, shout out to Craig T. Nelson, Spokane's own.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Happy
Yeah.
Father's Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, Craig, I missed it. A couple years ago, Spokane Indians brought in Craig T. Nelson for Father's Day. And we went in, and I was one of the last people. I was getting ready to get let into the line, and they're sorry, we got to cut you off. You can't come in. I was devastated. I really wanted to get my picture taken with Craig T. Nelson. I'm a big fan of Coach, and also another show that he did called Parenthood on NBC that only ran for 5 or 6 seasons. Like he was the dad. Dude, I love Craig T. Nelson. That was a really sad moment for me. But anyway, back to what you were saying, Tone. Yeah,
Oh no, it's yeah,
father
I think
figures though. He plays a good father figure.
he does, yeah.
Crooks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting off track. Back to
No,
you.
that's the beauty of it, Pat. But I think Crooks was any. I think Crooks was in the middle of a few thoughts.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe before we wrap up our close encounter discussion, we should address Roy at the end of the movie just voluntarily going with the aliens into the mothership.
Yeah. He didn't even seem to have any qualms or
well,
anything. Yeah.
no,
He just
he's
went.
prepared to walk away from his family and this world for good. Like he's still compelled to know what's going on, and the only way to know is to go. So he's going to go for it.
Yeah, and they chose him over everybody else. So, what would you guys do, Crooks? What would you do? Would you go on the mothership?
I might be in more of a position to be able to pull it off than someone else. Like, you know, with the lack of family and stuff. I mean, maybe you just do go for it. But Roy had a family, but he was still compelled to seek out those answers. So I don't know. That's a tough question. Who would agree to go on a permanent vacation? I don't know. What kind of person would do that?
What would you do, Pat? I mean, you're a family guy too.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I'm too family centered in my current life to want to do that. I think I'd be compelled to want to know what was on that ship, but I don't think I could leave my family behind to do it. But man, I that's something that crossed my mind too, Crooks. I'm like, this is a diehard. This is a guy that is willing to just leave it all behind and just walk up in there. But his life changed once he started trying to recreate the Devil's Tower in his living room. Life changed dramatically. And maybe I might be able to recreate the Devil's Tower in my living room.
Yeah, this afternoon.
Yes, this afternoon.
Oh man. Well, that was a good chat, guys. That was pretty fun.
That was a good one.
I agree.
Come here, babe. Come on, I got my daughter creeping in. You gotta say hi. Say hi, Beijing.
She's famous.
Say hi.
There we go.
Bye.
Hi.
Yeah, she's like, Dad, time to go.
Yeah, it's time to wrap up this conversation, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't answer. I think I would be hesitant, like Pat is saying. But knowing that I've already dipped my toes in the thing, I don't know how, especially if I had all those urges to be drawn to the area, I might get on, even though I think now I wouldn't, but
I don't know.
I might do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what the opportunity is and what you might be able to do with that, and being able to have answers to mankind's eternal questions, that could be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, these particular aliens have already shown that they're willing to return you, but 50 years might go by. You know, your wife might be dead, your kids might be older than you.
Yeah, that would be wild. You come back at the same age, you're in your mid 40s and they're like 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be rough. Tough decision.
Yeah.
So
that would be, imagine visiting them in the old folks' home and they're like, who's this? Is this your great great nephew? No, this is my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you could do some negotiating with the aliens or whatever they are. Maybe they're crypto terrestrial. Maybe this is their home and we're the aliens. Who knows who they are?
Who knows? We got some interesting things to be able to discuss moving forward. We got an endless supply of topics, I feel like.
Oh yeah. It's like each rabbit hole is like a gremlin. If you feed it after midnight, it turns into 20 more rabbit holes.
It's a real problem. As long as the gremlins don't end up in a swimming pool. Dude, I'll tell you what, that's another movie that terrified me. I never wanted to deal with the Stripe in my life. You know, the Stripe just caused all kinds of trouble. You know, killing that teacher, was trying to lure him in with a candy bar. Then he ejects him.
I
Dude.
I don't know if Gremlins crossed my mind today when we were mentioning Spielberg, because he
Yeah,
directed.
that's another one. It's a
Yeah.
Christmas movie for
It is.
some.
I always mention that as my favorite Christmas movie.
What about Die Hard? That's another one that comes up. People are like, you got two different sides of the coin. You got people who are like, yeah, it's definitely a Christmas movie. Then you have people like, no, it's just an action movie that happened to take place during Christmas, with Nakatomi Plaza being in the background. I don't know, man. It all comes down to difference of opinion. But I love that you see it as a Christmas movie, because I do too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh man, good,
Well,
good
all right,
times,
Pat.
guys.
I gotta hit the road, but you wanna send us off, Pat?
Sounds good. Yeah, Extraterrestrial University, episode 2. You've had the opportunity to experience the wild and wonderment of another conversation amongst 3 people who have various levels of enthusiasm when it comes to the world of AUP and aliens. So, once again, Tone, Crooks, myself, Pat, signing off. Thanks, guys, for the opportunity. Look forward to the next conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Later.
All right. Peace.
Glowing silver disc approaching the speed of light. Just take a moment to scan the night sky. Just don't know what it might try to hide. A gliding comet, a falling star, something more nefarious coming from afar. Alien invasion, alien invasion. Galaxy sporting life, advanced